and welcome to a discussion about ways marketing can affect human behaviors, led by myself, Taylor Frisby-Jack, a senior marketing undergrad at West Virginia Wesleyan College. Today we will be taking a particular look at a book called The Smarter Screen by Shlomo Bernardsky. This book details surprising ways to influence and improve online behavior. Looking through history, it's quite incredible to see how far technology has come. To start off today, let's take a look at the top 10 innovations within the last decade according to ABC News. First, GPS goes mainstream in May of 2000, followed by Toyota's invention of the Prius, which was the first hybrid car, in July of 2000. Then in October of the same year, AT&T introduces text messaging to the US. Moving into 2001, in mid-January, Wikipedia is launched, which sparks the rise of user-generated content. And then in July 2001, the shutting down of Napster, which was caused by a lawsuit for copyright infringement, set the stage for a new age of file sharing. In March of 2003, Friendster kicks off the social networking revolution. The next month, a human genome project was completed, shedding light on human migration, common diseases, new energy sources, and much more. Then in August 2004, Google goes public in order to make search as a new way of life. In 2006, Nintendo Wii was launched. And then finally, in June 29, 2007, Apple's evolutionary iPhone was launched. So all of this in the last decade. Wow, it's incredible. So to think about where we have come, where we are headed, and how fast technology is getting us there is almost intimidating. However, there's no time to feel frantic. We must get prepared. To be prepared, we must also know what is to be expected of us, and through the study of human behaviors, we will be able to predict what lies ahead. So it's no secret today the importance of screen in our daily life. As a first world country, we are surrounded by screens at all times. Here's a project for you. I challenge each and every one of you to go one full day and count how many screens you encounter. Let me take you through a normal day for myself. I wake up to my alarm sounding. Of course, it's on my iPhone, so I reach over and turn it off. I wake up to start breakfast. In the meantime, I turn the TV on for my daughter to watch. After playing Pandora while I get ready, we are finally ready to leave the house. On the way to dropping my daughter off at daycare, I pass 2 digital billboards, not to mention the digital screen in my car. I get to daycare. They have a TV in the front lobby playing kids' songs. I leave daycare and I head to campus. During my walk to class, I pass the marketing TV on the business floor. Then I get to class, where not only my computer is required, but the professor instructs off of PowerPoint as well. After class, I head to work, where I sit behind a computer all day, answering phones, need I mention with a digital screen, caller ID, I write emails, and so on. I leave work where I drive back to get my daughter. At this point, I have been in the car for the 4th time. I have walked past the daycare TV 4 times on my way out the door. Finally, we are home. Of course, as soon as we get home, my daughter asks for her tabby, so I get out the iPad. I cook dinner with my Pinterest app while my boyfriend watches football on the TV. After tucking my baby in for the night, I sit down to do homework. Of course, it's on the computer. My boyfriend is still watching TV while also Christmas shopping on his iPad. So we go to bed, we check out our social media accounts, and we set our alarms to start our next tech-enriched day. So one very normal day for myself, and I have already noticed over 10 different screens over 20 different times. And I didn't even count every single time I grabbed my phone to shoot a text message, search the web, or even answer a phone call. Nor did I count every time that I touched the computer screen. This just goes to show how important screens are in our daily life, whether we recognize them or not. Studies have shown that people learn differently on paper than they do on screens. People read less on screen, they perform more poorly, and they are more likely to become overwhelmed with interacting with a screen. So Bernardzi's studies on consumer behaviors with screens has led to the assumptions that people expect differently. The pace of our thinking on screens tends to be much faster than on paper, and our thoughts on mobile devices is even faster than what they are on screens. So why does all this matter? Well, because computer scientists who study our online assessments refer to our swift judgments as rooted in a sense of visceral beauty. In other words, users react to the way we think on screens differently. Decisions are mainly based on how we feel at the time. So what do people like to look at? Well, there are many different things that play a factor in answering this question, but hopefully after today, you will have a vivid understanding of what screen attractiveness looks like. If there is anything that you remember after today, remember this: first impressions matter. You only have 50 milliseconds to impress your visitors, so flash test your websites or your ads to a sample of people and ask for their opinions. Did you know that trustworthiness on a screen has been tested and the prettiness scores higher for trustworthiness than ugly content? Even if the content is the same. As humans, overall we define prettiness as asymmetrical and simplistic. Complexity can often result in confusion, and for functionality purposes, it's best to keep it simple. In addition, remembering your target audience that you're associating your website or your ads is crucial, as different demographics values aesthetics differently. So we know now that reaction speed on screen is much faster. And in order to slow the mind down, there are a few techniques that we're going to go over today that can be taken advantage of. Fluency, for one, can help determine your next move. When deciding on the level of fluency to create, ask yourself the following questions. Do you want people to complete a transaction and make a quick purchase? In this example, consider high levels of fluency ideal and encourage the process with as much ease as possible. Or, for the second question, do you want the site to be informative? If so, disfluency is the way to go in order to slow the mind down. Or the third question, do you want people to take time to reflect on the information that you've given them, such as a warning label or disclaimers? In this case, disfluency is also ideal. Your next question may be, how do you change the high levels of fluency to become less fluent? Well, it can be actually rather simple. In school, we most frequently submit in Times New Roman. We also see high levels of Vernanda and Arial, among many others. However, to change the pace of information intake, it's actually a good idea to mix up the fonts. It's been proven that harder to read fonts can improve reading comprehension and slow reading speed. Also, different layouts that make the eyes work harder, or lower screen resolution can help retain information on screens as well. In addition, cognitive disfluency, or harder words that require deeper thinking, can actually hinder quick reading. Bernardzi's The Smarter Screen also places a heavy focus on avoiding blind spots. He exemplifies the game Battleship to help his readers reach an understanding of this. Similar to the game of Battlefield, screens have hot and cold spots. In other words, certain areas of the screen are looked at first, second, more frequently, as well as some areas which are avoided. That said, it's important to recognize these areas and design your content accordingly. According to studies, our eyes are immediately attracted to the middle of the screen. Just like in stores, our eyes are attracted to the middle of a shelf. The middle of the screen, referred to as middle bias, have huge impacts on decisions made by customers. An example given in the book is that consumers will select an item from the middle of the screen even though it's not their favorite choice, such as a candy bar, but primarily because it's actually in the middle of the screen. The next most popular area is the top left. Top left bias are thought to be in place because of the way people read in the United States. So, keep this in mind when you're working internationally or targeting different language-speaking individuals. Again, using the game Battleship to refer to, did you know that choosing the edges of the board increases the likelihood of not getting picked by 6 times? The same concepts are in web design. These are considered to be the cold spots. But what would you want to be in cold spots? It makes most sense to put your lowest profitable items in those areas, or the items that you don't necessarily need attention drawn to. Finally, we as humans pose greater bias horizontally. What that means is that we favor horizontal patterns over vertical patterns. So information displayed in rows receives a greater decision weight. Next, we are going to look at real-life implications of Revlon, a leading brand in the beauty industry, and how they implement some of these tactics that I've just discussed. So let's get started. Here on the top left, we see Revlon's home website. Right off the bat, we can see the simplicity and symmetry of their site. However, we also can notice a large white spot in the middle of the screen and the top left of the screen. Now from Benartzi, we know that these are the 2 most commonly looked spots of the screen. So what does this do? Well, it forces you to look in the other 3 areas, which are actually the cold spots of the screen, from the center. So you look in the middle, then you look up to the left, and you're forced to redirect your attention somewhere else. So after I looked at this site, I looked over and I could see that I could scroll down on the website. So I scrolled down and came to these next 2 advertisements. Right off the bat, we can see the simplicity and symmetry again. We see the boxes in which the ads are shown. So they're actually taking up the entire horizontal view of the screen. It leaves a little bit of space at the top and bottom of the screen, which you can tell. And I think that's to make you aware of the fact that you can actually scroll down to see more. The color white is very apparent on this page. It's very visible as the background, and it's meant to deliver the feelings of cleanliness, virtuous, and health, because that's what the color white does. Again, scrolling down, we see very similar ads which are shown here, taking up almost the entire screen, sort of like a ribbon running completely across the screen. Now remember, Benartzi taught that consumers place heavier decision weights on content running horizontally. This is a great example of how that works, not only on websites, but the ads placed on these websites. For example, look at the ribbon featuring hot products. The ribbon is horizontally placed across the page, as well as the products, which are placed horizontally across the advertisement. These products are even placed in a very simple and clean manner. Next, let's take a look at the fluency of Revlon's website. Looking at Revlon's eye makeup page, we can see a similar layout. But what differences do we see, and what assumptions can we derive from the change from the home page to this page? Well, we can assume that the middle items most likely have the higher profit margins, according to Bernarzi. We can also see that the background color went from white to black. Going from completely an unsaturated background to a totally saturated background with much color contrast, which is seen on the makeup page. So that's a main difference we can see. What does Revlon actually want to accomplish with this? The brand uses a lot of red, as you can tell, and that's to invoke passion, aggression, and importance, while black inspires power, sophistication, and an edgy feel. We can also see that the visual appearance is very aesthetically pleasing, wording is kept to a basic minimum, and the edges, or like the game Battleship, the cold spots of the screen remain completely empty, forcing your eyes to the center of the screen, the interior where all of the content is actually placed. One thing I find very interesting is how small the font is, and that the font is shown in red, which makes it slightly harder to read. It does make me squint a little to try to read the description of the product. In this case, I would say that the fluency still remains high because overall the site is very simple and easy to navigate and easy to read. In this next example, I will click on the second item shown here, which is waterproof mascara, and see where it takes us. Okay, so after clicking to learn more about the waterproof mascara product, I was taken to this screen shown on the top left. A long ribbon ad, basically. So after scrolling down past the full product, I see the full product description and the option to actually purchase. Suddenly, in this area, I believe that the fluency is actually increased slightly. With smaller font and a full description, more wording, bigger wording, the fluency increases slightly. I think that it's really cool also that Revlon offers the option to share their product on your social media straight from this page. This presents the opportunity to get increased brand awareness at no cost to the site, to the company. One suggestion that I do have so far for Revlon is that the company might want to flip the order of appearance here, because the objective is obviously to encourage the purchase with the buy now feature. But when I clicked on the screen, the screenshot of my screen was the top left, so I only saw the advertisement. If I did not know to scroll down, that option to buy now would not be viewed. So by flip-flopping and placing the buy now screen at the top, they might actually get more consumer purchases. Let's go ahead and click the buy now feature and see if we can complete a transaction. Actually, to my surprise, you cannot make a purchase from Revlon.com. The site redirects you to Ulta Beauty. I have to admit, I'm actually a little bummed out by this. Revlon made no effort to obtain any information from the time that I entered their page until I was redirected, which also means they are making no effort to personalize their products. A little bit further, they're also probably going to have to pay for all the information, data, and reports that they want to obtain to use for future marketing purposes. They could have put a simple pop-up at the beginning of my entrance to their site saying, enter your email here to join our mailing list, or enter your information for a discount code. Anything to obtain any information would have been a better experience, but there was actually no effort throughout the entirety of my visit. With this, again, we can assume that Revlon does not personalize any of their products or their services. And that was on the top of Bernardzi's list. He encourages personalized products, messages, and anything else that shows interest in the consumer's life. When you show personalized interest, a consumer is more likely to buy your product. Bernardzi actually seems to like the birthday list, which would be such an easy option for Revlon to conduct. A simple message saying, list your email, what's your date of birth, and what is your name. Those three can make personalization move much better. Let's take a look at a survey that I conducted just for fun. I interviewed 5 random people on campus. One of them was actually a male. Although this may skew away from Revlon's direct target audience, I was still interested to compare my results to Bernardzi's findings that were given in the book. So I gave each prospective customer 100 milliseconds to look at the site, which is actually double the time that Bernardzi says a first impression is derived. Now, my first question was taken directly out of his book, and overall, I think that the results were quite pleasant. To no surprise, voter 4, who, may I mention, was a male, and according to Bernardzi's study, men find those colors that are shown on Revlon's, throughout Revlon's website, they find those colors significantly less aesthetically satisfying than women. So voter 4 gave the lowest attractiveness of the website. The women who voted 3 7s and 1 8. Fairly high scores. And then after 100 milliseconds, they were asked to list one word that they would use to describe the website. The women said sexy, fashionable, good, and white. Voter 4, who was the male, actually considered the website to look bland. I repeated the exercise, and the results did not veer away from the original very much. This time, I asked them to take 2 minutes of their time to look at the exact same website and ask them the exact same questions. Scores slightly increased on question number 1. And for question 2, comments went from appearance-based to a little bit more accessibility or user-based. This said, Bernardzi is still right. Consumers make up their minds so incredibly fast, so we need to remember that first impressions matter. Let's take a look at what happened. When asked on a scale of 1 to 9, how would you rate the overall attractiveness of this website? Voter scores increased slightly. Again, we got 3 7s, but in this case, the 6 and 8 went to an 8 and 9. Then, for question number 2, list one word that you would use to describe the website. Descriptions varied from sexy, edgy, easy, useful, and sexy again. So the color red really did its job. And the fluency of the website also seems to have done its job. According to psychologists Keith Stravanach and Richard West, the mind is separated into 2 systems, System 1 and System 2. System 1 reacts fast and automatic. This system is driven by instincts and emotion, and it relies on our unconsciousness. This system is almost instantaneous. Conversely, System 2 is reflective and deliberate. It relies more on consideration and takes more time. This said, we can assume that System 1, from our findings and Bernardzi's book, System 1 is how we react on screen, while System 2 is how we react on paper. System 1, again, is almost instantaneous. Tell me how fast you scroll through Amazon looking through all their options. I mean, we don't even consider. We just scroll, and it's almost reaction of how we see the product, see the website, without even looking at the reviews or anything like that. Then, when we're flipping through a magazine or a catalog or a newspaper, we are actually taking more time. We're deliberating more. We're considering more. So those are things that we need to take into consideration when marketing online. In summary, I hope that after today, you can understand the effects of marketing and what it has on consumer behavior and vice versa, because the two work together. Using the beauty industry to look at a website and online advertisements allowed us to see real-world effects and the tactics discussed in the smarter screen. Again, remember, first impressions matter. When it comes to fluency, the downside of easy is also the upside of hard, and the rules of complexity and the hot and cold spots of the screen, because this is what matters. Thank you for watching today, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. My name is Taylor, and I'm signing off.